Hi, I'm Rich from RD United TV, and today I'm going to be talking Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester United Carabao Cup. I'm going to be representing Manchester United, putting forward their story. But before I start, I just want to say thanks, Chris, for inviting me to talk on your channel. And Manchester United's YouTube channel I represent, RD United TV. We've just hit 3K subscribers, so any support is appreciated. You could also follow myself personally on Twitter, X at RichSports7. So if you enjoy Manchester United content, if you are a Manchester United fan, or you just enjoy watching a YouTube channel which really doesn't like Arsenal as well, then everybody's welcome. But getting into the match, and this season as a Manchester United fan, I think we pretty much had probably one of the low points we've had for decades in terms of watching our team early on. I mean, Spurs fans will remember the match we played against you early in the season. That was probably like a low point, I think, for Eric Ten Hag. And it was probably one of the final nails in Eric Ten Hag's coffin. I think so far this season, overall, we've been very disappointing. Although we've got a new manager. We've appointed Amarin as manager. He's only had 5, 6 games, but already I think Manchester United fans are looking and seeing we can see a difference. We can see improvements. We can see finally a plan, and finally a manager's actually come. He's had a different way of playing, a different formation, and he hasn't compromised what he did at Sporting. He's trying to do the same thing, albeit with a squad that isn't really shaped for that formation at the moment. He's not compromising on what he wants to do. And as a Manchester United fan, that makes me quite happy with this appointment because we wanted a manager that's going to come in and try and rebuild Manchester United and try and recreate what he's done at Sporting Lisbon. Admittedly, there's going to be more pressure. It's a difficult league. So, aims for this season, I've seen a lot of YouTubers that have written the season off. I don't think Manchester United can write a season off. There's still a lot of things to play for, even the Carabao Cup, which we're talking about tonight. There's also the FA Cup. There's the Europa League, which again, I think Manchester United and Spurs may butt heads in that competition. We're probably both in the top 5 teams in that competition, I would say. So there's a good chance we do meet again in the season. So I think realistically, Manchester United should be looking to improve in the league. They should be looking to slowly move up the league. And at the moment, there's a lot of teams separated by 4, 5, 6 points. So realistically, I would say Manchester United should try and finish at least in the Europa League positions. So that's like fifth, sixth, seventh, and try and win either a domestic trophy. The Europa League would be fantastic. It's going to be difficult, but I think Manchester United should try and at least carry on where Eric Ten Hag left off in terms of at least trying to win a competition each season. That's something that as fans we want to see at least try and win competitions. Don't write anything off. Like we don't want to be like an Arsenal. We don't want to get drift through not winning, just focusing on the league. You can't just focus on one competition. You've got to try and pick up trophies where you can, and that's kind of my aim for the season. Regarding like Spurs this season, I think they fall into the category again of a lot of teams there were like Aston Villa, possibly Newcastle, maybe Manchester United as well, as teams that are a bit hit and miss. I've seen Spurs be fantastic, and you just completely destroyed Southampton. I mean, everybody does destroy Southampton, but still, it's a really good win. And the fact you finished them before halftime is pretty impressive. Also, you took Villa apart, but then there's been a few slips where Spurs have lost games where you kind of expect them to win. Maybe the Ipswich one was a bit of a surprise, but I think Spurs they're doing things the right way in terms of as a fan, it's you quite like seeing attacking football, and I can see what Ange's trying to do. A bit more solidity at the back, maybe a little bit more balance in midfield, and the Chelsea game was just one of individual errors, really, which was a bit disappointing because I was quite hoping that Chelsea wouldn't get much out of that game. So I think overall it's a tough season for Ange. I think the Carabao Cup, the Europa League, there's competitions where Spurs could be looking to try and get a trophy and end that trophy drought. So I think Spurs fans are right to be cautiously optimistic. But again, it's one of these seasons where no, there's a lot to play for, but a few bad results and you could find yourself mid-table. A few good results, you could be pushing for top four. It's a really difficult one to call for Spurs season. Regarding this fixture, and favourite memories of it. I think as a Manchester United fan, you probably look at like 1999 when Manchester United had to beat Spurs to win the Premier League title on sort of the first leg of their treble winning season. But I think overall, probably as like a one-off game, which didn't really count for too much. I would say Manchester United, when they came back from 3-0 down, we're going back a long time. It's probably about 2001, 2002-ish, I think, where Spurs were winning 3-0 at halftime. I think Christian Ziege might have netted your third one just before halftime. I was kind of thinking, okay, the game's done, it's all over. And then Manchester United came back in the second half, played some ridiculous football, and ended up winning the match 5-3. So I think for me, that's probably one Spurs fans will probably want to forget. Younger fans won't even remember it. But that's one where it just showed that Manchester United back then, and I hope to see in the future, we just didn't know when we were beaten. At the moment, there's been too many games where we have been beaten quite convincingly, and unfortunately, that's something I don't want to see again. But that's probably one of my favourite fixtures. In terms of like Spurs players that I don't want to see, don't want to face, fear, worry about, I think overall it's really difficult because when we played you earlier in the season, I thought we were atrocious. So I don't want to take anything away from Spurs, but Manchester United weren't remotely competitive in that game. And with a no, say if Harry Kane was playing in that match, Spurs could be looking at a record win against Manchester United. So I watched that match thinking we were just absolutely terrible. But otherwise, I'll just look at your attacking players and just saying that the way you throw caution to the wind sometimes and do attack, I think is quite exciting for Spurs fans. It could be a bit of a concern for Manchester United fans, but I'm just kind of looking forward to seeing how Amrin sets up against Spurs. We know how he plays normally, and we know we've kind of shut the door in midfield, so we're not quite as easy to run through, hopefully, because Spurs weren't the only team to run straight through us. If you watch Manchester United in Europe, in the Europa League in particular, other teams are running straight through the middle as well. So one thing we have done, and the game against Manchester City might have illustrated it a little bit, although City were quite poor, is that Manchester United do look a little bit harder to play through. So I wouldn't say I'm concerned overall. I'm just wary that Manchester United do have mistakes in them, and I think Spurs are a team that would pressurise our back four if they get the chance. Oh, I'm sorry, our back three if they get the chance, and it could be a tricky game. Regarding which Manchester United players Spurs should look out for, maybe be concerned about, I would say best performers, very recent form, Amad Diallo. It might have gone a bit under the radar for other fans until possibly the weekend where Amad Diallo was a ridiculous finish towards the end. He's looking at a player that's really actually got his first proper opportunity, his first run of games in the club. The Eric Ten Hag didn't fancy him for whatever reason. He very rarely featured, didn't start very often, was coming on as a late sub. Van Nistelrooy, as interim manager, gave him some games. We saw really good performances. And Amarin's really taken to him. He's been playing as a right wing back. He's been playing as a 10. He's all over the pitch on the weekend and looks like a player in form. He's definitely going to be our most likely threat at the moment on very recent form. We're also seeing if we can get the ball to Højlund, we can get some chances. We know we got quite a good finisher there. So I think that's our biggest threat at the moment. Other players you'd look at, it depends if Garnacho, Rashford, Bruno, depends which of those players are playing, but they're the sort of players that are quite dangerous on the day. So there are the players you could look out for. What sort of game am I expecting? Considering the performance against Spurs earlier in the season, I'm looking for Amrin to completely shut the door in terms of making us a lot harder to beat. I'm expecting a bit of more of a cagey game. I'm expecting Manchester United to get more possession than they have done in past matches. I'm expecting Manchester United to try and play with more control. And to be honest, Amrin's only been at Manchester United for a matter of weeks, not that many games. I'm just looking forward to seeing how we perform as a team. And I think it's going to be one of these games where it's actually quite difficult to call. So I'm expecting quite a cagey game. I'm not expecting the sort of game we saw early in the season where Spurs ran through us. I'm not expecting Manchester United to win comfortably either. I'm expecting a game to be decided by 1 goal maybe, and a pretty tight game. And in terms of Manchester United for the future, what do Manchester United need to change to be back where Manchester United fans want them to be? I think the key is we've got a new manager. We've actually got a lot of people behind the scenes, whether Ineos. We've already appointed and fired as our first sporting director. So there's a lot of things changing behind the scenes. I think with Barada, Wilcox, we are going to be looking at trying to recruit a bit better in the transfer market. We're going to try and reshape our team. I think get a younger, more energetic feel, because we have been a team that's really bought badly in transfer windows. We've overpaid for average players, and it's really affected our squad. So at the moment, a lot of our more experienced players are probably going to be leaving at the end of the season, and we really need to try and try and react and try and rebuild our squad. So I think really we just need to make better decisions consistently in terms of how we recruit, and also try and back the manager. So we saw on the weekend Rashford and Garnacho got not just benched; they were not even in the match day squad. So I think Amarin has pretty much said it's his way or the highway, and player power is not a thing at Old Trafford anymore. Hopefully that is the case. Um, to go back to the Carabao Cup and who's going to win this season, I honestly think it's a tricky one. Manchester United and Spurs should definitely be in the mix because we're not in a title race. Top four isn't really something that we should be uh, aiming for. We should just be aiming to progress in the league, certainly. But I think what Manchester United fans and Spurs fans should be looking for is Arsenal and Liverpool are the other two big teams in this competition. They're going to be playing quite a lot of other important games. There's a good chance they rotate at some point when these fixtures happen in this competition, and we should really target it. That if Manchester United or Spurs, whoever gets through this game, they should be looking to target this competition. I think as a competition they can win, like a one-off game against Liverpool or Arsenal, these teams can win. So I think it's actually really difficult to call. I wouldn't back against my team if we got past Spurs. In the same way, I wouldn't back. No, I wouldn't probably expect Spurs to be the favourite if they played Liverpool. But if Liverpool rotate, I think Spurs should go full strength in this competition and try and win it. So to go for like a projected lineup, I know we're going to play 3-4-3, but I don't know which players are going to play. So I've got Martinez, De Ligt, and Mazraoui as three players that generally play in defence. Whether we bring in Maguire, whether we bring in like possibly Dallo as a left centre back, I don't know. But potentially Yoro could play right centre back and push Mazraoui into the right wing back position. And in terms of midfield, we've been seeing this lineup recently. Agate, one of the first names on the team sheet. Ahmad Diallo at right wing back is looking very dangerous at that position. And Dallo, in the absence of a proper left wing back, Dallo's been playing a lot of games. So I think if you look at Manchester United, the left is our weakness. Even like I've got Eriksen there behind the striker. I honestly couldn't guess who's going to play behind the striker because Rashford and Garnacho usually occupy those sort of positions. They were both dropped on the weekend. We played Mason Mount on the weekend. He got injured, so he's not available. I think we could be looking possibly Eriksen could come in. There is a shout that maybe Anthony could come in as a right wing back or left wing back, and possibly Ahmad Diallo occupies the space where Garnacho is. So we could see Garnacho there. We could see Mazraoui there, and we could see Yoro coming in defence. So this is kind of what I'm expecting. I would be expecting Højlund to start up front. Other options are possibly Xerxes up front, who also Xerxes could be playing as a 10. But I think more likely than not, one of them will be on the bench because we want to replace like for like people if we can during the match. And that's pretty much what I'm expecting. If I had to make a score prediction, I've got to back Manchester United. We just beaten Manchester City at the Etihad. Now these are like times where you've got to back your team. I think it's going to be a tough one though. If I had to make a prediction, I would go 2-1 to Manchester United. But ideally, if Manchester United can't win this one, then I think any Spurs fan will probably know my feelings about Liverpool and Arsenal. And if Manchester United do get knocked out by Spurs, then hopefully you guys can go on and lift the trophy, because I'd rather see you guys win it than the other two. And before I finish, just a quick shout out for the socials again. And also thank you, Chris. Thanks everybody for watching. And hopefully I will see some of you guys in streams or get some follows on social media soon. But until then, guys, thanks for watching.